Hello, Regina. Good evening.
Hello, teacher.
How you doing today? How was your day?
So far, so good.
Okay, good. So welcome to the session number 5. In this session, we will be discussing about assessing, reading, speaking and listening. Okay. As introduction, could you please read the introduction? Too short.
Yes. Listening and speaking are fundamental skill in language learning. Effective communication depend on the ability to understand spoken language and express thought clearly. Assessing these skills requires specific techniques and criteria to ensure that the students are developing their proficiency in real life communication contexts.
Yes, as you know, that listening and speaking, I would say that are two of the most challenging skills that this language has because we need to develop, right? And sometimes we don't practice listening. We practice more speaking than listening, you know?
That's
Okay,
right.
let's see the topics as I told at the beginning. So we're gonna talk about assessing listening and speaking skills. And our objective for these sessions are we have to explain the importance of assessing listening and speaking skills, identify different types of listening and speaking assessment methods, design appropriate instruments to evaluate these skills effectively, and develop rubrics and evaluation criteria for listening and speaking assessment. As you know, in the previous session, we were discussing about some criterias, right, for developing reading and writing. But in this case, we're gonna see listening and speaking. Okay. As you know, I like to start with a speaking activity. What do you think about the first question? Why do you think listening and speaking are essential in learning a new language?
Um, so say, what do you think listening and speaking are essential in learning a new language? Um, well, I think that they are very essential because, for example, listening help students to understand how words sound, how to make a sound, or how sounds are structured. Um, and also help them to speak more naturally, and also I think that improve pronunciation. Speaking basically help like practice using the language in real conversation. The more you speak, the more confidence and fluent you are.
Yeah. Do you think that a person that doesn't know or can't uh, speak and understand listening can communicate with other person, with other people, if that person only know how to write and read?
Teacher, just give me a second because someone is calling me.
Okay, okay. Let me know when you have finished, right? Hello, Regina. Are you there?
Yes, teacher. Sorry.
Don't worry. Don't
What was
worry.
your question? Sorry.
So, do you think that a person that only know how to write and read it, but that person can't speak, can communicate with other people?
Of course that they can communicate. They or for example, of course that she or he can communicate because they are doing not speaking but writing.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Let's continue with second question. What are the characteristics of a good speaker and an effective listener?
The good characteristic of a good speaker. Basically, first of all, to have like coherence, good pronunciation, um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and effective listener, an effective listener. Well, for the listener, basically is to understand what the other person is talking about and understand and try to you know, follow an idea.
Mm-hmm. You know
Yes,
that to be an effective listener, so we need to be, or yeah, we need to be active listener, right?
exactly.
But how are we going to achieve this? Practicing every single day. Remember that
Exactly.
the more you practice, the more you learn, right? But if you
Exactly.
don't practice listen, so you will become in a passive listener. So that at the end it's gonna be difficult for you to understand when a native speaker talks, right?
That's right.
Okay, let's move on to the third question and last one in the speaking activity. Have you ever faced difficulties in understanding spoken English? How do you overcome them?
Yes, I remember that when I was studying the first years of the university,
Hmm.
it was very hard for me because I have like a basic English, like
Hmm.
some I think that I only have like my vocabulary was very reduced. So, and it was very difficult to me to understand what the teacher said or what she was explaining. So it was very difficult for me for the poor vocabulary that I have uh, during that time.
Hmm.
But then I practice my English. I learn, if I'm not mistaken, like five or three words every day. So that helped me to improve my understanding because when the teacher say, you know, a new word and I didn't know the meaning, I try to
Hmm.
look for that meaning and keep that word and that meaning for me. So, and then I practice with that. I wrote a sentence, things like that in order to,
Hmm.
you know, enrich myself with new knowledge and try to understand what the other people is saying.
So in that way, it was easier for you to get better your English skills, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's move on here. So here we're gonna see that the importance of assessing, listening, and speaking skills. I would like you to read, please.
Yes. Important of assessing listening and speaking skill. Listening is foundation of language acquisition. Without good listening skill, students struggle to understand conversations, lectures, or even simple instructions. Speaking allows learners to express their idea, engage in discussion, and interact effectively in social and academic settings. Assessment help identify a students' strengths and weaknesses, guiding teacher in improving instructional strategies.
Yeah, as you know, they have to be together, right? Because
Exactly.
let's see an example. Those people who looks for some work on a call center, you know that there are some people that they are good at speaking, but when they are being interviewed, they can't listen well what other person is telling him or her. So probably that person is a passive listener because they don't practice, right? Listening.
Exactly.
And we got the opposite, that there are some people that are good at listening, but at the end, when they have to speak, they
They
can't.
exactly.
So that's why that we need to balance, we need to enhance both speaking and the strategies that you use for to enhance the English skills. It was pretty good, but not all the students do the same thing, you know?
Yes,
So
that's right.
especially those students that they just acquire the thing that the teacher applies on classroom. So you know that is not enough, right? So we need to research about our own. We need to practice more because not only English, all the languages, whatever languages that you want to learn, we need to practice. If we don't practice, probably we won't learn such a language, right?
That's right. That's right. As you said before, we need to have like a balance because we need to
Exactly.
practice grammar,
Mm-hmm.
speaking, reading,
Right.
because we need try to be full.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when you got it, and when you got what you wanted, so you need to maintain the same active
Exactly.
because if you don't practice, at the end, some words or some phrases are gonna be forgotten.
Exactly.
Why? Because remember that English is not our surroundings.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So we need to keep practicing
Yeah.
um and try to use it in our daily basis in order to do not forget them.
hmm Okay, good. So here we got some methods of assessing listening skills. You know that we can implement the multiple choice or true or false questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we can listen an audio, a recording with from native speakers, and then we have to we can answer such questions by selecting the right answer or just answering true or false. So that would be one. Another way or another method that we have for assessing listening skills and is something important is the note taking. You know that even when you're working in the call center, you need to develop note taking, right?
Exactly. Yes.
I
Not
re
taking is
mhm.
like take notes, right? For
Right,
whatever.
right.
Yes,
Yeah,
that happen.
yeah.
That usually happen in the call center. For example, as you know, you need to have like a verification, so you need to take note about their personal information, like their name, Gmail,
Mhm.
phone number, and
Yes.
things like that, and also the issue, because sometimes when you are talking, the customer gave you the issue and you forgot. so so that's why you
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
write them.
We need to take notes, right? At the end, we need to summarize, right? Key points.
Exactly.
So the idea is not to write the whole sentences.
Just main ideas or
Yeah,
like keywords.
yeah, keywords, right? Keywords. And note taking must be related with retention because if you take notes about keywords but at the end you forgot the message, it's gonna be it's gonna
A
be
mess.
difficult for you to
Yes,
transmit the message, right?
that's right.
So we need to be good at retention and good at taking notes, right?
Yes.
Let's see next one. Fill in the
That's,
gaps, right? Or exercises. Or in the previous session, we were talking about close exercises, right?
yes, it's almost the same, right?
Yes, it's somewhat the same, right? You know that here it's when we have some missing words.
And you have
Uh,
to complete it.
yeah, yeah. So easy. Let's see next one. Dictation. Dictation, at a certain point, it's related to read, right?
Yes.
And we need to have a little bit vocabulary about it because if we don't understand or if we don't have much vocabulary, let's suppose medicine. If we don't have a lot of vocabulary about medicine and the teacher is making a dictation, probably it's going to be hard for you to write down those words because you don't know them.
That's right. That's why you have to have vocabulary to
Right.
be ready for dictation.
Now the burning question is, have you ever practiced dictation at university?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Do you think that that is just for false beginners or yeah, for false beginners? Or do you think that this method or this technique can be implemented in all levels?
Of course, it should be implemented for all levels, depending of the level. So you have to so the words get
Right.
harder,
Right.
depending of the level.
Yeah, good. And the last one is the listening journals. What is this? So you know that when a person is studying English, most of the teacher use lecturer audios that they listen to whatever topic, and then they have to analyze what that person said and answer some questions, right? But this is related to as the first one, right? But the first one, it's more directly the sentence, right? But in listening journals, let's suppose that we got a lecturer talking about environmental issues, and then you have to make a summarize. What do you have to do? Analyze the lecturer and then proceed to do the summary, right? But how are you gonna do this? Taking notes.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to next. And here we got the methods of assessing speaking, oral presentations. You know, so I think that, or I would say that oral presentation is one of the most common methods that most of the teacher use in the classroom, right?
Yes.
Especially when they are assessing speaking skills. It's just for that ability, right? To enhance communication skills, right? What others do you think that we can use to
Role
implement?
plays.
That's right. That's the second one. Okay, role plays. That this one can be simulated as real life situations, right? As authentic assessment. Okay. So the purpose of the role plays is that the student have to interact, right? Using a
Exactly.
specific vocabulary and structures depending on the topic. Then we got interviews. What do you
In
think is the focus of interviews?
like to measure the way that you express. Well, for example, interviews for job interviews is like they want to measure how your English level and
Mm-hmm.
also the way you express,
Right.
the ideas or the way that you introduce yourself, things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, you mentioned something important that is the way how we express your ideas, your opinions, right?
Your opinion.
And provide explanation about something, depend on what you're talking. Then we got storytelling. What do you think about
Storytelling.
it?
Um, storytelling. Um, mhm. Well, if I'm not mistaken, storytelling is when you read like a story and then you have to explain them, right? What is the story about? Or
Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes, that's
It,
a good idea because first of all, you have to read an article. It could be an article, and then
Mhm.
explain then what is the article about with your own words,
Right.
with the based on what you have read. So that's a good one.
As a teacher, That is easy, but when you're telling, when you're making, or when you're applying that method, storytelling in intermediate or advanced levels, even on beginners. But it's so challenging when you have to teach this one in first, second, and third grade of primary education. Because let me tell you that the Minet has storytelling, one of the way how to enhance speaking skills in first, second, and even in third grade in primary education. It's so difficult because you know that at that age, students can't write. If you think that they are going to take notes, they can't, especially in first grade, right? So,
That's right.
what do you think, or you, as a future English teacher, what strategy would you use to assess speaking skill storytelling in first grade? What comes to your mind?
Um, well, like funny stories. Oh, no, it's like a small how can I say cuento, teacher? Tales.
Tales.
Okay, like story tales, easy tales with pictures, things
Yeah,
that help them to identify what is the tale about.
yeah, I agree with you. Using flashcards, right?
Exactly, using
Using flashcards.
flashcard. So very dynamic in order that they have an
That's
idea what
right.
is the tale about since grade.
That's right. Because remember that kids learned by visualization
Yes.
because at that moment they can't write. Okay, good. Debates. What do you think about debates?
Debates. Yes, it's good because like you give like a random topic, and as you know,
Hmm.
everyone have a different way to think, different opinion, different belief. Some of
Hmm.
them will be agree with a topic and some of them will be disagree, so in that way
Right.
you can you can like um I don't know,
In
so they
that,
can express their
yeah,
ideas, exchange opinion, belief.
yeah, that is a good example. In that activity, you know that at the end, the most important is that both group have to state their position, right? They have to argue about it, even if the other person is right or not. Okay, let's see. Bueno, ahí quedaríamos el día de hoy, Regina. So it's gonna be all for this session. Solo recordándote, ¿verdad? Que tenemos la tarea correspondiente a esta semana, a esta sesión, para que ya está en plataforma, para que solo la descargue como has venido haciendo con las demás y procedas a realizarla y subirla en tiempo y forma, ¿ok?
Okay, profe.